The sky over Seoul was covered in heavy clouds, threatening an impending storm. In the heart of the city, a towering skyscraper stood majestically, reflecting the cold morning light. It was the headquarters of KJ Group, a financial empire built over generations, now led by the ruthless Kang Jun-hyuk. Inside the building, the atmosphere was rigid and meticulously organized. Employees maintained impeccable posture. The hallways were silent, and every step seemed perfectly timed. Dressed in a tailored black suit, Jun-hyuk stepped out of his luxurious limousine and entered the building, his sharp gaze assessing everything around him. He walked with calculated steps, his presence dominating the space as employees bowed respectfully. The CEO rarely allowed himself distractions. To him, the world was an exact equation, and any unexpected variable had to be eliminated. But that morning, an unexpected variable appeared. Yoon Ha-ri, newly hired in the administrative department, rushed down the hallway with a pile of documents in her hands. Her first month at the company had been a true test of endurance, and she was desperately trying to adjust to the corporation's demanding pace. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the elevator doors opening in front of her that, as she stepped inside hastily, she collided directly with a solid wall. Or rather, not a wall. The documents flew into the air, scattering across the gleaming marble floor. Time seemed to slow as Ha-ri looked up and found herself face to face with Kang Jun-hyuk, the man everyone feared and respected. His stern expression remained unchanged, but his dark eyes carried a flicker of restrained irritation. An oppressive silence filled the space. A few nearby employees held their breath, bracing for what would come next. Ha-ri blinked several times, her face flushing with embarrassment. Then, in an automatic reflex, she quickly bowed and scrambled to gather the scattered papers. "Omo, I'm so sorry," her voice trembled. "I didn't see that you were… I didn't mean…" Jun-hyuk remained still for a moment, watching the woman kneeling on the floor. His eyes took in every detail, her slightly disheveled hair, her nimble hands picking up the documents, and the way she bit her lower lip in nervousness. Something about the scene struck him as unusual. "Do you always walk around without watching where you're going?" His voice was cold, devoid of emotion. Ha-ri felt a shiver run down her spine. It was the first time she had heard the CEO's voice in person, and it was just as sharp as the rumors said. Even so, she took a deep breath, and without daring to look at him directly, replied, "It wasn't my intention. I was in a hurry, but I shouldn't have been so careless." She continued picking up the papers quickly, feeling every second weigh heavily on her shoulders. But to her complete surprise, Jun-hyuk bent down and picked up one of the fallen documents. The air grew even more tense. He glanced over the paper before handing it back to Ha-ri, his expression unreadable. "Don't let it happen again." Without another word, he straightened and walked away, as if nothing had happened. The employees, who had witnessed the scene, exchanged discreet glances, surprised. No one had ever seen Kang Jun-hyuk react so mildly to an incident like that. Ha-ri remained kneeling for a few more seconds, her heart pounding. When she finally managed to steady her breath, she clutched the documents to her chest and hurried to her workstation. But what she didn't know was that this unexpected encounter had stirred something inside Kang Jun-hyuk, something even he didn't yet understand. The storm outside had finally begun to fall, but inside that building, another storm was about to form. The rain fell gently over the city of Seoul as Yoon Ha-ri entered the office that morning. The incident from the previous day still lingered in her mind, but she tried to convince herself that the CEO had already forgotten. After all, to him, a minor accident involving an employee couldn't possibly mean anything. Even so, her heart raced whenever she thought of Kang Jun-hyuk's impassive expression. As she reviewed a stack of documents in the administrative department, she sensed a slight commotion around her. Discreet whispers spread through the hallways, and before she could ask what was happening, her supervisor approached her hurriedly. "Yoon Ha-ri, the CEO wants to see you in his office." Now, Ha-ri's blood ran cold. Being summoned by Kang Jun-hyuk himself? That couldn't mean anything good. Swallowing hard, she stood up and made her way to the upper floor where few dared to step without an official summons. The doors to the spacious office opened, revealing a minimalist, yet intimidating space. Kang Jun-hyuk stood behind his mahogany desk, his eyes fixed on a document. Upon noticing her presence, he slowly lifted his gaze. "Sit." Hari obeyed, feeling her sweaty hands rest uneasily in her lap. The CEO intertwined his fingers on the desk and observed her for what felt like an eternity. "You're part of the administrative department, correct?" "Yes, sir." "Your job includes organizing important documents, correct?" "Yes, sir." Her voice came out slightly shaky. Jun-hyuk leaned forward, his gaze assessing every detail of her expression. "Then why did I receive a report with errors?" "Huh?" Rai's eyes widened in confusion. "An error? But I reviewed everything." He slid a paper across the desk toward her. Hari quickly picked it up, scanning the red ink annotations. Her mind raced to understand what had happened. "I can correct it, sir," she said quickly, trying to control her nervousness. Jun-hyuk tapped his fingers against the desk before responding. "No need. I already had it redone. But from now on, you'll personally be responsible for reviewing any document that crosses my desk." "Ha!" Rai's heart skipped a beat. She blinked, unable to believe what she had just heard. "Sir?" "You heard me." His voice was firm, but there was an underlying tone of challenge. "Since you've already had enough accidental contact with my reports, let's see if you can handle it officially." A shiver ran down Rai's spine. What should have been a punishment felt more like a test, and she knew she couldn't afford to fail. Outside, the rain intensified, as if echoing the storm beginning to brew inside her. In the days that followed, Yoon-Hari immersed herself in her new responsibility. Every report that landed on Kang Jun-hyuk's desk now passed through her hands first. Each detail was meticulously reviewed, and every potentially catastrophic error was eliminated before reaching the CEO. The work was exhausting, and the pressure was overwhelming. But to her surprise, she began to notice something unexpected. Jun-hyuk was paying attention to her. At first, it was just discreet glances during meetings. Then, short video messages sent via email with notes on the reports. After that, the calls to his office began. Always formal, always direct, yet with a subtly different atmosphere. There was something there, something Hari couldn't quite decipher. One afternoon, while reviewing a stack of documents in the CEO's office, Hari felt the weight of Jun-hyuk's gaze on her. She pretended to concentrate, but her heart was racing. "You've been doing well." His voice broke the silence. "Few people can keep up with my pace." Hari looked up, surprised by the unexpected praise. "Thank you, sir. I just try to do my job as best as I can." Jun-hyuk leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. His gaze was piercing, as if analyzing every micro-expression on her face. "Why did you join KJ Group?" Hari hesitated for a moment before answering. "My father worked in finance. He always taught me the importance of dedication and hard work. I wanted to follow this path to make him proud." Jun-hyuk remained silent for a few seconds before leaning back in his chair. "Interesting. People like you tend to be the most loyal." Hari furrowed her brows, intrigued by his cryptic tone. Before she could ask what he meant, the office door swung open abruptly. A middle-aged man in a gray suit entered without ceremony. "Jun-hyuk, we need to talk." The newcomer's authoritative voice made Hari instinctively shrink back. The CEO's expression remained firm, but his posture grew tense. "Father," he responded coldly, "I'm in the middle of work." "Then dismiss your employee. What I have to say is a family matter." Hari understood the cue. She quickly gathered her documents and stood up. "Excuse me, sir." As she stepped out of the room, her heart pounded in her chest. Something told her that the conversation between father and son would not be a pleasant one. And somehow, she had the feeling that she was part of the reason behind the tension. Outside, the night was beginning to fall over Seoul, and with it, the shadows of an impending conflict loomed closer. The hallways of KJ Group felt longer that night. Yoon-Hari walked briskly, trying to shake off the unease that had settled in her chest since leaving the CEO's office. Something about the way Kang Jun-hyuk had looked at his father made her realize that this was no ordinary conversation. There was resentment there, a tension that went beyond business and obligations. Inside the elevator, Hari gripped the documents more tightly. She shouldn't care. She had nothing to do with the Kang family. But why did she feel a tightness in her chest when she thought of Jun Hyuk's hardened expression? When the elevator doors slid open, she nearly collided with a tall, imposing figure. Jun Hyuk! The surprise slipped from her lips before she could stop it. He looked exhausted, yet his presence remained as dominant as ever. His dark gaze was distant, as if he were still digesting the earlier conversation. "You're still here?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Hari hesitated before answering. "I was just going to drop these documents in the archives before leaving." Jun Hyuk nodded but didn't move. For a moment, the silence between them felt heavier than mere formalities. "Did you hear anything?" he finally asked. "Ha!" Rai's eyes widened. "No? Of course not! I left immediately." He studied her for a moment, then let out a low sigh. "My father wants me to marry an heiress from the Shin group." The confession took Hari by surprise. Her heart skipped an involuntary beat, and for a fleeting second, she hated herself for it. Why was she reacting like this? It wasn't as if this affected her personally. Is this a business decision? Her voice came out weaker than she had intended. Jun Hyuk let out a humorless chuckle. To him, everything is a business decision, even my personal life. She saw something different in his face at that moment. Behind the ruthless CEO's facade, there was a man who perhaps wanted something more. A man who didn't want to be just another pawn in a corporate game. "And you? What do you want?" Hari asked before she could stop herself. He remained silent for a moment, before his eyes met hers. "I'm still figuring that out." The elevator doors closed behind him, and Hari stood frozen in place, her heart pounding. Little did she know, that night would mark the beginning of a battle neither of them had expected to fight. In the days that followed, Kang Jun Hyuk seemed more distant than ever. During meetings, his expression remained unreadable, and he spoke only when necessary. Yoon Hari sensed that something was deeply troubling him, but she knew she couldn't ask directly. It wasn't her place. It wasn't her right. Or was it? That afternoon, Jun Hyuk summoned her to his office. Hari stepped in hesitantly, feeling the heavy atmosphere around him. He stood by the window, gazing out at the city as if searching for answers in the skyline. "The wedding is set for a month from now." His voice sliced through the silence like a blade. Hari felt a tightness in her chest but kept her composure. "I see." Her own voice came out colder than she had expected. Jun Hyuk turned to face her, his intense gaze searching for something within her. Then, with a sigh, he walked over to his desk. "I can refuse, but if I do, my family will turn against me. My father might even push me out of the company." Hari swallowed hard. So that was it? He was truly considering giving everything up? "And do you want to refuse?" she asked, unable to hide the hope in her voice. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to her, closing the distance between them. "If I say yes, would you stay by my side?" "Ha!" Ri's heart pounded. She had never imagined that Kang Jun Hyuk, the cold and calculating CEO, would ask something so vulnerable. But before she could respond, the door swung open abruptly. It was Kang Ji-ho, his older brother, the true heir to KJ Group before he had relinquished the position. "So it's true? You're really willing to throw everything away for her?" A chill ran down Ri's spine. Jun Hyuk stood his ground. "If I can't choose the person I love, then what's the point of having all of this?" Ji-ho let out a dry, disbelieving laugh. "Do you really think our father will allow it? He's not a man who accepts losing." Hari felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Was she truly ready to step into this war? Before she could answer, Jun Hyuk firmly took her hand. "I am not like him, and I won't back down." At that moment, Hari knew there was no turning back. Kang Jun Hyuk's arranged marriage to the heiress of the Shin Group was set to become a nationwide spectacle. Headlines had already dubbed it the Union of the Century, and the Kang patriarch was pleased with how everything was unfolding. But there was one thing no one had anticipated. Jun Hyuk wouldn't show up. That night, while hundreds of guests waited in the lavish hotel, Jun Hyuk was miles away, standing inside a small temple, where only a select group had gathered to witness a very different kind of wedding. Yoon Hari, dressed in a simple hanbok, trembled slightly as she looked up at Junhyuk. He held her hands firmly, his eyes carrying a silent promise. The monk officiating the ceremony smiled before beginning the ritual. "Are you sure?" Hari whispered, unable to hide the emotion in her voice. Junhyuk's smile was soft, but certain. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Across the city, chaos erupted within the Kang family. The enraged patriarch sent security teams to track down his son. Business alliances were at risk, and shareholders demanded answers. But Jiho, Junhyuk's older brother, simply watched in silence. He knew this moment would define the family's future. By the time they found Junhyuk and Hari, it was too late. They were already married. Days later, Junhyuk called for an emergency meeting at KJ Group. Many expected him to resign, but instead, he stood his ground. "I didn't choose to abandon the company. I chose the right path," he declared. "KJ Group has always been a symbol of innovation. It's time we show the world that we also value people." Surprisingly, Jiho backed his brother. With his support, the pressure on their father weakened, and the opposition slowly began to crumble. Over time, the Kang family accepted Hari, realizing that Junhyuk's happiness mattered more than an arranged marriage. Years later, Junhyuk and Hari stood in front of their new home, watching their children play in the garden. He wrapped his arms around his wife, feeling truly free for the first time. "Do you regret anything?" Hari asked, resting her head on his shoulder. He smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Only that I didn't do this sooner." The wind blew softly, carrying the certainty that, against all odds, love had won.